Hey, Shalom, Akim Shalom. First and foremost, as always, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth, and that's what teaching this truth, and much peace, love, and salutation to the elect, beginning with 144,000, all the way down to the large multitude that believes, and who the Lord will deliver in these last days. To you all I say Shalom. I'm the brother Tazamah from the Great Millstone Dallas camp, coming back today with another lesson, and I pray this lesson will be edifying to the elect. And I want to do a lesson today entitled Hell, the Grave, Judgment, and Earthly Affliction, Not Eternal Fire. All right, the grave, judgment, and earthly affliction, not eternal fire. And inspiration of this lesson just came by way of a comment that Elder Apostle Tahar made on this video that you see here on the screen. It was done 2 hours ago. It says, this is why you got to keep teaching the basics. Because, you had someone that came, on the comment board, going in on the fact of how, he thought that hell, was a place of eternal judgment, of a place of eternal judgment, of burning fire, just as, Christianity and the Roman Catholic Church teaches, which is a complete lie. You even have some Israelite groups that teach that hell is a place of eternal judgment. All right, like the IUIC, they teach that, which they didn't teach that up to about 3 years ago. They didn't teach that, but now, as we know that they're a group that's subject to change, beginning with their leadership. But, it's good to go back into the basics and go back into the things that, we, those of us that's been in, that's gone over these topics, time and time again. It's good to go over these topics once more, so that, you have newer listeners that are coming in listening, and they may not know. It's easy to just type in, GMS hell breakdown, and there's all kinds of videos that'll show up, but, why not just, why not just do another video on it, the scriptures talk about how out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. So, these are things that we got to constantly keep going over and over again, ultimately until the Lord ordains us not to not teach no more. And when I say that is when the famine of the word hits, But I have some precepts lined up that I want to grab on this topic. And once again, I pray that this lesson is edifying to the elect. So the first scripture that I want to go to is the book of Ecclesiastes. All right, Ecclesiastes chapter 9, and we'll read verse 5 and 6. All right, because if there's a place where you burn forever, in eternal fire, how is the Lord there? Matter of fact, before I get this, when I say how's the Lord there, there's a reason why I said it that way. Let me actually get this real quick first. It's either Psalm 139 or Psalm 137, but it might be Psalm 139. Let me see. Yep. This is Psalm 139, verse 8. All right, it reads, it says, if I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. So how's the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, how is he in heaven and how is he in hell at the same time? I thought hell, all right, was a place where the so-called devil is. It's a fiery flame. It looks like in a deep abyss, and there's fire all over the place. You got demons and people screaming, just being tormented, just being burned up forever. You got a spirit that's on fire, mind you, a spirit that's made out of fire, that's on fire. How does that make sense? It doesn't. That's why anybody who's teaching this hell doctrine, all right, they're going off. Like the IUIC, they're going off teaching this hell doctrine, man. It's not biblical. Because when you simply get the word hell, all right, because you got to think, you have the English equivalent to words that were translated from the Latin, all right, that was translated from the Greek, that was translated from the Hebrew. Okay, remember you had the Hebrew scrolls. I'm saying it now. I'm saying it again, but I'm saying it the other way. You had the Hebrew scrolls, which is translated into the Septuagint, which Septuagint means 70. All right, you had the Septuagint, which that was translated to the Latin Vulgate, which that was translated into what we have now as the modern day English Bible today. But a lot of words that you see, whether it's in the Septuagint or going back to the Hebrew, they could have different meanings. But that's why it's important to go into words. You see, got the individual at the IUIC. The English is good for me. Well, if you just read anything for face value in the English, how come you guys don't celebrate Easter? Well, we know Easter goes back to paganism. Well, how do you know that Easter goes back to paganism if you see the word Easter in the book of Acts? How do you know? In Acts the 12th, I think it's in Acts the 12th chapter. Well, that word really goes back to the Passover. Well, how do you know? It doesn't say that. Anyways, that word hell, all right, in this verse here is shot a wall. Okay, that word is shot a wall, and you may see Sheol sometimes, but it's really shot a wall, right? And it says you see Sheol, you see underworld, grave, hell, pit. So the hell literally just means the grave or the pit. That's all that it simply means. Okay, it doesn't mean no abyss where you burn it forever. Okay, so when you see that word hell there, it's talking about going into the grave. Okay, everybody, when you die, you go into the grave when you die. You see, so you're going into the abyss, for lack of better words. Okay, let's get a precept. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 5. It says, "For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything, neither have they any more a reward." You see, so if you're in hell, burning forever for the deeds that you've done on the earth, and you go to this place, you go before the judgment seat, and either A, you get open into the pearly gates. And I'm saying it that way because this is how Christianity teaches it. You enter into the pearly gates, or B, if you've been bad, quote unquote, you go down into hell. Is that not a reward? Is that because you got a good reward and you got a bad reward? You see. So it says, but the dead know not anything, neither have they any more a reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. You see, there's no remembrance. You're not going to remember why you in hell. You're not going to remember why you in a place. So right now there's just spirits just tormented, going all the way back from the foundation of the earth. That passed. Did Adam go to hell? What about the other wicked kings? That ruled. The scripture says that they rested with their fathers. You see, but there's no remembrance. But if you're in hell, you're supposed to be remembering why you're there, right? See, it don't make sense when you just read the scriptures for what they say. All right, and then you go into the actual etymology of words. It doesn't make sense if you say that hell is a place where you burn forever and it's a place of eternal torment. Okay, this is the book of Job, chapter 14. Verse 10, it says, "But man dieth and wasteth away." It says, "Yea, man giveth up the ghost, and where is he?" Right? Because where does he go? When you have somebody that dies, like a relative, whatever the case may be, a friend, and they die, what happens? Ultimately, they get buried. Right? Where do they go? They go to the grave. Okay? It says, "As the waters fell from the sea, and the flood decayeth, as the waters fell from the sea, and the flood decayeth and drieth up. So man lieth down and riseth not, till the heavens be no more. They shall not awake, nor be raised out of their sleep." Okay, so here it is when he's talking about death. You see, and it makes me think about Yahushua whenever he raised, the damsel from the dead, that little girl from the dead. He put forth the people out the room. If somebody want to find that and post it on the comment board, they said, what did he say? He said she's not dead, but she's just sleeping. You see, that's why do they say rest in peace? You see, because all spirits, whenever you die, according to the book of Job, the 3rd chapter, all spirits go back to the Heavenly Father. As a matter of fact, real quick, what's that, Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter? Let me get that real quick. And the spirit returned to him that made it. Let me see. I haven't read this one in a while, so bear with me. Yep. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 7, it says, "Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was." You see, you go back to the earth. Your body gets decomposed. The worms and things of that nature. You got all kinds of worms and parasites in your body that whenever you die, your body pretty much eats itself from the inside out. You see, then of course you got different kinds of worms and things of that nature in the earth already, because that's what they're made for. Worms and things of that nature, they're used to break things down. So it says, "Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto the Most High who gave it." So your spirit returns back unto the Most High. What happens? You return back before the Most High. Okay, you stand before the judgment seat, as it says in 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter. All right, you receive a judgment of the thing that you did on the planet Earth, the things that you've done. Okay, and then when it's time for you to come back in reincarnation, the Lord sends forth that spirit back into the flesh through the act of sex from your parents. okay, through the act of sex from your parents. And then what happens is that you play out your judgment on the planet Earth. That's what happens. You see, and it's that simple. Okay? Now, let's go from here and let's get Psalm. Let's see here. Let's get Psalm 6. Let's get Psalm 6 real quick. This is Psalm chapter 6, verse 5. It says, "For in death there is no remembrance of thee." See that? For in death there is no more remembrance of thee. But I thought you were supposed to be. I thought in death, if you go to hell, you're supposed to be remembering why you're there. You know, you're supposed to be remembering the fact that, well, you know you didn't do good. Now I will say this: these people that are going to be here in Babylon the Great America, all right, whenever they're going to be getting burnt up by the thermonuclear missiles, they're going to be remembering, you know, in anguish and great pain, like it says in Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter, you know, why they didn't get right. They're going to be remembering that. But eventually, you know, the Lord going to take their spirit. If you're an Israelite, eventually you're going to come back to the loins of the elect. You're not going to be burning forever. Okay? Because that lake of burning fire that's written about in Revelation, the 20th chapter, is not a place of eternal torment. I seen that Deacon Hakah now saying that Deacon Hakah is now saying that the lake of burning fire is not America, and I'm curious to see what he's going to say what it is, because the lake of burning fire is talking about America. It's going to be, because all of America is going to be completely on fire and eviscerated. All right, whenever Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua returns, man. Well, I'd rather say whenever Yahweh sends Yahushua to return to deliver A, his elect from the nation of Israel, all right, and B, destroy the wicked, man. All of America will be on fire, man. Okay? I forgot how many square miles it is, how many square miles America is off the top of my head. I can't say. But it's going from Canada to Mexico, all of America is going to be completely on fire and smoking. Okay? So reading this again, Psalm 6 and 5, it says, "For in death there is no remembrance of thee. In the grave, who shall give thee thanks?" See, because there's a forgetfulness of remembrance in the grave, man. You see, so when the prophecy says in Psalm 16, "Thou shalt not leave my soul in hell," did he actually go to hell? No, he didn't actually go to hell, man. He was in the grave, man. Okay, he was in a sepulcher, and then what happened? It was that the Lord rose him up from the dead. You see, but that's why it's important to go into words. You see. Because hell, just like as we're reading here, hell, this is the form of the hell being the actual grave, the pit. All right. And then you also have hell being pretty much an affliction. And when somebody says, "I'm catching hell, man, I'm going through hell," that person's going through hell right now. Are they actually literally going through hell? No, they're not actually literally going through a place where you on fire. No, that means that they're catching hell. That's the only way you can really put it. They're being afflicted. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28. All right. Verse 47. And this is the curses. When you read Deuteronomy 28, verses 1 through 14, it gives you all the blessings for obeying Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. But when you read verses 15 all the way down to verse 68, it gives you all the curses that will befall us if we didn't obey Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. And all these curses befell the Hebrew Israelites. It befell us. You see, and with these curses befalling us was hell, man. You know, having yokes of iron put around our necks, our women raped and ravished in front of us, our men being raped and ravished by their slave holders, being shipped out to various different places of the earth, children being separated, being, chattel slavery. That's all hell, man. Okay. This is Deuteronomy 28, verse 47. It says, "Because thou servest not Yahweh thy power with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things." That's hell. You see that? This is hell. It says, "And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he hath destroyed thee." You see, this is actually catching hell on the planet Earth. You see, as a matter of fact, what's that scripture? After death is the judgment. I think it's like 2 Ezra 14. Let me see real quick here. After death, is the judgment. Hold on. I want to say a second. It's the 14th chapter. Let me see. 14:28 maybe. Nah. I'm gonna pause it real quick and come right back. Okay, yep, here it is. I found it. It was just a little bit lower. So this is a 2 Ezra 14 and verse 35. It says, "For after death shall the judgment come, when we shall live again." Let's read that again. "For after death shall the judgment come, when we shall live again." So if somebody dies, how are they in hell serving eternal? How are they in hell serving eternal judgment when the scriptures clearly said they're going to live again? It says, "Then shall the names of the righteous be. Then shall the names of the righteous be manifest, and the works of the ungodly shall be declared." See, because you pretty much, when you read in the book of Ecclesiastes, it says that he beheld the judgment under the sun. You see, this is the place of judgment here. You see, I just want to bring that out real quick. Let me get Lamentations, the 5th chapter. Lamentation 5:1. It says, "Remember, O Yahweh, what is come upon us. Consider and behold our reproach. Our inheritance is turned to strangers, our houses to aliens." You see, we're not in our own land no more. You know, we've been kicked out of our own land. It says, "We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows. We have drunken our water for money. Our wood is sold unto us." You see, the things that naturally come out the earth, we got to pay for it. You got to pay for water. You got to pay for wood. You know, the food that you eat, you know, that you don't know where it's coming from. You got to go to the grocery store and buy it, but you don't know where it's coming from. You know, you got to pay rent. You know, you got to pay for electricity. And these are all things that the earth gives you for free. These are all things that Yahweh B'Shem Shai provides unto us. But now, underneath the heathen, we got to pay for these things. That's hell. Our necks are under persecution. We labor and have no rest. That's hell. When you labor and you're tired, you don't even have no rest, man. You're exhausted, you know, worn out. You see, because we're playing out the judgment here on earth. This particular position that we're in. Okay. Isaiah chapter 5. Verse 14. It says, "Therefore hell hath enlarged herself," right, "and opened her mouth without measure." Letting you know, it's talking about the grave. You see, look, here it is in the NLT. "The grave is licking its lips in anticipation, opening its mouth wide." You see why? Ultimately, due to transgression, what? The wages of sin is death. So now that the wages of sin is death, when we all die, the grave can never be filled. You see? It says, "In their glory, in their multitude, in their pomp, and he that rejoiceth." I'm sorry. Yep. Let me finish out. Yep, there it is. Let me read it again. "In their glory, in their multitude, in their pomp, and he that rejoiceth shall descend into it." You see, you're going to descend into the grave. You see, the great and the lowly and all the drunken mob will be swallowed up. You see, but it lets you know that hell hath enlarged herself. You see, and even when you start up, it's in the fact of it talks about captivity, slavery in verse 13. What about Jonah? You know, this is Jonah chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "Then Jonah prayed unto Yahweh his power out of the fish's belly." You see, this is whenever he got swallowed up by the large fish. You know, he was told to prophesy, and he pretty much tried to run away from the Lord. So the Lord sent a big whale, a big fish to swallow him up and spit him back out on Nineveh, right? And said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto Yahweh, and he heard me. Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou heardest my voice." Out of the belly of hell. You see? Was he actually in a fiery place burning forever? No. This was a condition that he was in. Imagine being in the belly of a large fish. Just imagine that. That's hell. That's torment. That's affliction. And it's the same word, sha'awal. See that? Shot a wall. Okay? And it says the underworld, but that's where they get this whole Hades and Tartarus in the Greek, you know? Because even when you look into it, you know, when you look at the word for hell, and matter of fact, let me get it real quick. Just so this is probably gonna be the last one because I gotta make a move real quick. But like when you get the word hell here in Matthew 5:22, all right, this is Yahushua speaking. It says, "But I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Rakah, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hell fire." And this is a symbolic representation of judgment taking place according to a particular valley in east of Jerusalem, southeast of Jerusalem, called the Valley of the Son of Hinnom. That's why when you get that word hell here, it says what? Gehenna. Gehenna. Why does it say Gehenna here in the Greek? It says hell is the place of the future punishment called Gehenna, or Gehenna of fire, right? This was originally the Valley of Hinnom, south of Jerusalem, where the filth and dead animals of the city were cast out and burned. And you did have also wicked Israelites that would go down to that valley as well and burn their children in the fire to sacrifice to Molech. When you read that in Jeremiah the 7th chapter, you see a fit symbol of the wicked and their future destruction. A symbol, that's the key word, a fit symbol for the wicked and their destruction. And that symbol is going to be what? That fire that's going to come via thermonuclear destruction. Okay? That's what that's talking about. So it ain't talking about no eternal place where you burning forever after you die and your spirit on fire. Here it is. Your spirit's on fire, but your spirit is a fire. Your spirit is a flame. How does that make sense? How are you gonna burn in the spiritual place called hell, but your spirit is fire? You see? That's why it's important to what? Understand and know what words mean. You see? Let's grab one more. I think it's in 2nd Ezra, the 7th chapter. Let me see real quick. I think it's 2nd Ezra, the 7th chapter, in like verse 36. Let me see. 36. No, that's not it. But that's mainly the point. So I'll leave it there. You know, I pray this lesson was edifying and to the point. Once again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem, Hakodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders, a great millstone that taught us his truth and that's what teaching his truth. Much peace, love, and salutation to the elect. Until next time, Lord willing, I say shalom.